Hey there. So, today we're going to talk about the genogram and we're going to use my family to do it. So, if you look right here, I have given kind of a guide so that as we go along, you can kind of follow along. So, the triangle, right? We have female, square, male. Solid line is going to be married. Solid line with a through it, divorced. A dashed line, we're going to put as a one-time thing or a very short relationship. I have a lot of those in my family that involve children, and so I want to be sure that they're in here because it makes a big difference. So we have this harsh squiggly line. That is going to be a good relationship between either a parent-child or two parents or maybe a grandparent-child. I don't want to get too crazy because there's not a whole lot of room and I don't want it to be super crowded, but you'll kind of get the overall idea as we move forward. So we have this nice wavy line. That's going to be a good relationship, same as before. We have these dashes or hash marks, if you will, and that's going to represent no relationship. There are a few people that I find kind of have, they kind of know each other, but they really don't. Take my biological father, for instance. He and I had no relationship for a really long period of time. And then we had some relationship, and it was good, bad, ugly, okay, and then now we don't really have any relationship. So I wanted to note that. And then, of course, we have the DA, drugs and alcohol. Yay. I will put either a D or an A or both next to the appropriate person on the map so we can kind of see where the drugs and alcohol come into play, and then we can also kind of see where the good, bad, or no relationships come into play. So, forgive me, I'm left-handed, so not only do I not write very well on the whiteboard, but I write across. So, let's dive in. We're going to start with my grandparents, okay? So we have male, female. This is Charlotte, and this is Tex. Now, Charlotte and Tex, they were one of those one-time deals that we were talking about. So not any real relationship, but you know, they had a child. So out of that, right, my mother was born. So this is going to be Monica, okay? I want to note that this is going to get a little crazy, but hopefully you can follow along, and then if there's any questions, feel free to reach out and ask, because I really like the idea of all this, and so I really want it to be all the way done. So, Charlotte, right? Charlotte marries, okay, Joelle. I also want to note, I don't have it here, but I'll put an X through if the person has since deceased, okay? So, Joelle, right? They have a boy, and his name is Flint, okay? Now, out of these so far, we have a really good relationship here, okay? We have a good relationship here and here, okay? So everyone's kind of a good little family unit. So Charlotte and Joel, they get divorced, okay? Then Charlotte marries Vern, okay? Now Vern already has children, okay? So in the interest of all this, we're just gonna do boy, boy, girl, girl, oh boy, okay, so this is actually gonna be, sorry, girl, girl. So Vern already has children from a previous marriage, and I'm not sure exactly what her name was. she died several years ago. So his ex-wife, right? So they were divorced. Charlotte and Vern stayed married happily, right, for approximately 52 years, okay? So now we have Monica, Flint, we have Butch, Billy, Lucy, Darlene, all these children living, and I want to kind of do this in the same household, okay? So the relationships are kind of awkward, but it's just a really big family living in a small space. And so it's kind of hard to really dive into every single relationship. But what I would like to do is, so Vern, grandfather, step-grandfather, is deceased, okay? His ex-wife is deceased. Joel is still alive. His son, Flint, is deceased. Tex, the original grandfather, biological grandfather, is deceased. Charlotte, my grandmother, is deceased, and then my mother is also deceased. But from there, and I just want to do just my personal immediate family. So Monica, right, marries John. Okay? Let me back up. So sorry. Let me back up. So, okay. Monica, here, my mother, has a one night or, I don't want to use the word forced, but just a happenstantial type situation, okay, with boy Robert. Robert is my biological father, okay? So they do their thing. They have me, Alan. Robert is still alive. So, to preface very quickly, Flint, drugs and alcohol, okay? He died of cirrhosis. Tex, drugs and alcohol, died of cirrhosis. Then we have my grandmother's biological father also had an alcohol problem, and we're not sure if that's why he died, but it probably didn't help, obviously. So, here's everyone so far. Joel, Flint's dad, no drugs or alcohol. Charlotte, no drugs or alcohol. Vern, no drugs and alcohol. Vern, not even, I don't think he ever drank his entire life. Charlotte, some wine, but nothing crazy. And not a whole lot of drugs involved here. So, moving forward, Monica marries John, who is my dad. So he adopted me at birth. I think it's also important to point out that Monica lived with Joel for about 3 years, from like age 2 to 5, and then they moved on and then moved in with Vern, and they all lived there all throughout their high school years. So Monica and John have 3 boys together. We have Richard, Josh, and Matt, okay? Now, as far as relationships go, me and my mother had a wonderful relationship, okay? Me and my dad, we more so had no relationship. Up until recently, he and I never really clicked, I guess you'd say, but that is what it is. Then we have bio dad, right? And that's what I was talking about earlier, where it was none, and then it was some, and then it was none. So we're gonna go with none. Also, bio dad, he likes the drugs and alcohol a lot. He's actually very ill now. So here's my little family unit coming from here. Richard, Josh, and Matt, we all grew up together. We all, Richard and I have a really good relationship. Josh and I have a good relationship. These two have a good relationship. Matt, we're going to circle Matt because Matt has kind of disappeared from life. So the relationship between him and my mother was non-existent when she passed. And then his relationship with us, as a recovering alcoholic, I can level with him. And so he and I communicate a little bit. But him and John, my dad, actually have a pretty decent relationship. So that's kind of nice, right? As far as my parents go, no drugs or alcohol with my mom or with stepdad, right? Also to note, John had one of those one night deals with I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. They had a girl, Casey. Casey is still alive, blah, blah. We all shared a pretty decent relationship growing up. She was around sometimes, but not a lot. But when she was around, we all got along. And now, as grown-ups, we're all still pretty close. So that's kind of, me and my mother had the best relationship, okay? And then me and my dad, it was kind of iffy. But I can really already see just in this that if I look at grandmother's father, okay? So we have alcohol here, okay? And then if I go to the other side, to my biological father, okay? His dad also was an alcoholic. So I've got grandmother's side, mom's side, and then I've also got dad's side kind of working against me. I think we still all make our own choices with some of it, but there is some genetic stuff going on here that's kind of been passed down. Right. So, moving back, Matt, he is drugs and alcohol. Josh was, I was. I want to mention, and I'm going to put this, I'm going to use a circle, and we're going to say sober, because I think that's really important. So, we have Josh, who is sober, and we have Alan, who is sober. Richard, he never really, he drinks, but nothing crazy. But the relationships here, we all grew up as brothers. We're all 4 years apart, just your standard stuff. But since my mother passed away not that long ago, we have all kind of rekindled these relationships. And so I could honestly give a nice, good relationship flow line for the entirety of our little family here. Okay? So that is them. I won't go too much into Richard's married. Josh, he's actually in prison, but he's doing well. I think we'll put a little P there for prison because that has an effect on the whole family. So we're going to do P for prison. Like to note, Robert went to prison. My mother's original father, Tex, he also went to prison. And then I did, and Josh did. Okay. So it's kind of jumbled, and I'm sorry, my my whiteboard marker here is not the best. But I am gonna go ahead and switch colors as I roll into my personal immediate family. Okay, so Alan, we'll come over here. So Alan marries Amanda. Okay, married and divorced. We had a girl, Haley. Haley and Amanda have a wonderful relationship. Haley and I don't want to say we have a bad or a good relationship. We'll just do like a super squiggly here, all right? because it's kind of, I mean, I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, so I'm not gonna say that lends itself to poor relationships, but it definitely doesn't help. So we are seeing, we won't get into that. Anyway, so we have the drugs and alcohol with me, and we've got the prison, and we are divorced, okay? So then I jump over here and put these little dashes, because I am engaged. I don't really have an engaged. We'll put an equals there for engaged to Kennedy. Okay. Kennedy had a thing with Julian. They had a boy named Mateo. Okay. Kennedy, drugs, alcohol, sober. Julian, drugs, alcohol, prison. Now, this relationship between Kennedy and Julian is fairly non-existent. They don't really speak to each other, you know. Kennedy and myself, we have a wonderful relationship, right? We do not plan on having any children, but you never know, right? So I made this a lot smaller than I thought I had room for, but if the video's bad, I'll just make another one. If it is, then if it's great, it's great, right? I'll leave that up to you. But just from this, if I was to really clean this up, right, and if I wanted to look at the core, maybe not causes, but the core problems in the entire thing, what I would probably do is I would come here, right, and I would do great-grandfather, right, I would do, this is on my grandmother, my mother's side, right, we have grandmother, we have mother, okay, and we have me. So just on this side, right, we have some drugs and alcohol here, terrible relationship. Then we have over here, we have some drugs and alcohol here, right, for my biological father. And so I'm kind of getting it there. And then if I go to the other side, so we have bio dad, right, or we have his dad, we have him, we have me, right, and then we have my daughter. So as far as that goes, we've got drugs and alcohol in prison, we've got drugs and alcohol in prison, we have drugs and alcohol in prison. So my male genetic line is very prone. So I can see that when I'm making the GenoGram, which I think is really cool. My mother's side, kind of the same thing. It's really interesting too. I kind of already knew, but seeing it bluntly, my grandmother was with a man, right, and had a child, and then they split. And then my mother was with a man, and then they had a child, and then they split. And so I think that's kind of important to note, that there's some animosity there that I think that they all kind of had with each other. My mother actually never met her dad. My grandmother, she knew her dad, but he was an alcoholic, and it was just a really, really bad deal. So we could even put that, he is up here, drugs and alcohol. So there's some genetics right here that lend themselves to me. And then another thing that I kind of noticed in these relationships, right, that were kind of rocky to start with, we can see a trending line that all of the females, right, in this line are all very close. My great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, and myself are all very tight-knit, very close, very, we talk to each other pretty much every day. And so, for me, adding, so we have drugs, alcohol, right? And then I'm gonna add in a death of a loved one, because it is very hard, right? I think that needs to be shown when we're doing a genogram, because death is hard, right? When my grandmother's son, when my uncle died, Flint, from cirrhosis, that was very, very hard on her, and it kind of divided some lines within the family dynamic. And then for myself personally, we could see I was married for 15 years, and my addictions, right, drove that marriage apart. And so now we can see that the relationship that I have with my daughter started, and I think I kind of want to note this too, right? So it would just kind of be a different section, but so this would be me, okay? This would be my daughter, right? This would be Amanda. So this relationship from dad to daughter was very, very good to start. So we have a lot of nice, right? And then it just disappeared. It just fell off. And then now it's a rocky relationship that is moving towards a better one. And so I think adding that in there and making it kind of a key note helps me see like the timeline of how my decisions, affected this, and then I can look back and see how in the generations the different decisions affected different family members. So when my grandmother went with Tex, and then they had my mother never really had she had a strong father figure, right, in Vern, but it wasn't her dad. And I can feel not really the pain, but there's some hurt there, right, between her and her mother, but not a lot. And then I will say, my mom and my biological father, there was some resentment there that I think could also be shown a little bit deeper into the Enneagram. Oh my gosh, maybe next time. Into the GenoGram as well, because mine and my mother's relationship got really bad for a while, and then it kind of came back. So I think it's important to note when relationships start really good, then they kind of fall off, and then they kind of come back, and then they move back into a better relationship, because there's a lot of growth. There was a whole lot of growth here between me and my mom, and there's a whole lot of growth here between me and my daughter. My ex-wife and I, we don't speak. We just don't speak. And I know that affects our daughter as well. And so prayerfully one day we'll kind of get that straightened out. But that's kind of a very broad idea of, the past 3 generations of my personal family. And I really enjoy doing this. I kind of did it on a sheet of paper, and I ran out of paper, and so I think eventually I will probably really sit down and make one of these, because it's almost it's like a family tree on steroids, right? It's like a family tree that we get to see all the little intricacies of why people are the way that they are, what they did in their lives, did they change their lives, did their offspring change their lives? Because there's a really cool pattern here of people who, take for instance my uncle. He was an alcoholic, he got cirrhosis, he had a liver transplant, and he ended up living another 11 years sober. And so there's a lot of grace and a lot of redemption within the GenoGram, and I think it's really important. It'll be really important to me to note things like that in the future. So, thank you for listening. If this is not everything you ever dreamed it would be for me, please let me know. I will make changes. I'll do another one, whatever you'd like to see. Thank you.